Hello, hello. Welcome to James and Alina's English Chat, the place where we help you grow your English skills through real-life conversations. I'm James, and I'm currently surrounded by a mountain of clothes on my bedroom floor.
Hi, everyone. And James, please tell me you aren't finally cleaning out that messy drawer of yours. I thought we agreed that was a project for next year.
No, not the doom drawer today. I'm actually trying to pack for a quick trip, but it's not going well, which is perfect because today we're talking all about travel, from the excitement of leaving to the struggle of actually getting your suitcase to close.
Oh, I love this topic. Travel is wonderful, but it can be so stressful. Before we get into the stories, let's do a quick level check. This episode is designed for B1 and B2 intermediate learners. If you're a bit lower or higher, don't worry, you're still very welcome here.
Exactly. And if you don't catch every single word we say, that's totally okay. Just relax, grab a coffee, and let the English flow over you. You'll understand more than you think.
That's the spirit. Here is our plan for today's episode. First, we'll talk about travel in our real lives and share some of our biggest vacation mistakes. While we talk, I want you to listen for 5 specific phrasal verbs we've hidden in the conversation. And at the end, we'll visit Elena's vocabulary corner to review those phrases so you can use them yourself.
It's going to be a fun journey. But before we start the engine, I have a tiny favor to ask. If you enjoy learning with us, please like and subscribe to the show. It really helps us keep making these free episodes for you. We really appreciate the support.
It really does help. Now, James, tell me about this mountain of clothes. Are you having a suitcase crisis?
It's a disaster, Elena. I was trying to figure out how to fit 3 pairs of heavy boots into a tiny carry-on bag. My wife just stood in the doorway shaking her head at me. I actually had to sit on the suitcase with all my weight just to get the zipper to move.
I feel you. I do that every single time. I call it vacation brain. I'm usually very organized, but when it's time to pack, I completely lose my mind. I once spent 2 hours trying to catch up on laundry the night before a flight, only to realize I'd forgotten to pack any actual socks.
Socks are the first thing to go. I always come across random items I forgot at the very last second, like my toothbrush or my phone charger. It's so hard to get used to the routine of packing, even if you travel a lot.
It really is. And no matter how much I plan, I always run into some kind of trouble. Last year, I was so focused on my cat's travel carrier that I forgot my own passport on the kitchen table. My husband had to drive like a racing pilot to bring it to the airport.
That is my nightmare. How about you, listening at home? Do you have a suitcase struggle too? Do you pack days in advance, or are you sitting on your luggage 10 minutes before you leave for the airport?
I think I'm definitely in this sitting on the luggage camp. My husband usually just watches me struggle and asks if I really need 4 different jackets for a weekend trip. He's very practical, which sometimes makes my packing chaos look even worse.
He has a point. But honestly, all this talk about luggage and prep makes me look back at how we used to travel when I was a kid. It was so different back then, wasn't it? No fancy suitcases with 4 wheels that glide across the floor.
Oh, totally. No GPS, no movies on a tablet in the back seat, just a giant paper map that my dad could never fold back correctly, and a lot of patience. It was a whole different world.
Exactly. I remember the backseat of our old family car so clearly. It had these dark vinyl seats that would get incredibly hot in the summer sun. If you were wearing shorts, your legs would literally stick to the seat. You'd have to peel yourself off like a piece of tape when you arrived.
I can almost feel that. That sound of skin peeling off the plastic. Yuck. But there's something so nostalgic about those sensory details, isn't there? Even the uncomfortable parts.
There really is. And the smell? For some reason, my sister always insisted on eating those super strong salt and vinegar chips. In that tiny, hot, cramped space, the smell of vinegar was everywhere. It was so overwhelming. I honestly don't know how my parents could put up with it for an 8-hour drive.
They probably just turned the radio up and tried to ignore it. What did you guys do to stay busy? I imagine you didn't just sit there smelling vinegar and peeling your legs off the seats the whole time.
We played I Spy until we were absolutely exhausted. It's such a simple game, but it's a total classic. I'd say, I spy with my little eye something beginning with B. And my sister would guess sprage, bus, bird.
And let me guess, it was actually none of those things?
Exactly. Sometimes we'd end up arguing because I'd pick something that moved, like a cow in a field. By the time she guessed cow, the cow was 5 miles behind us. She'd get so frustrated.
That's the classic mistake. You have to pick things inside the car or something huge on the horizon, like a mountain. It's a real challenge to figure out the best strategy when you're 7 years old and bored out of your mind.
It really is. But those long, slow hours in the car were how we learned to be bored. And honestly, I think being a little bored is a big part of the travel experience. It gives your mind time to wander and notice things you'd usually ignore.
That's a great point. Nowadays, we're always looking at our screens to get through a long flight or a train ride. We forget to look out the window and just be in the moment. How about you listening at home? Do you remember the games you played as a child to pass the time on long trips?
I'd love to hear about those. Those I Spy games and the smell of vinegar chips, they really bring back the feeling of summer for me. Even if I was complaining the whole time back then, I'd give anything to go back to one of those car rides for just an hour.
It's funny how we miss those things. But lately, I've been trying to avoid the stress of travel altogether. I think I've developed a bit of a fear of airports after that passport incident.
I don't blame you. So what's the alternative? Just staying on the sofa for a week?
Exactly, a staycation. I thought I was being so clever. Last month, I took a whole week off work. I told my husband I didn't want to go anywhere. I just wanted to stay home, drink tea, and catch up on my reading. I even bought a new book and some fancy coffee.
That sounds like a dream, honestly. No security lines, no lost luggage, just you and your cat relaxing.
That was the plan. I set out to spend my first Monday morning in the garden. But as I was walking through the kitchen, I heard it. Drip, drip, drip. The kitchen faucet was leaking. Not a big leak, just a tiny one.
Oh no, I know that sound. It's impossible to ignore, isn't it? It's like the house is trying to talk to you.
It really is. I thought, I'm a smart person. I can figure out how to fix a simple leak. I watched a quick video online and it looked so easy. The guy in the video fixed it in 3 minutes.
Mistake number 1. Those videos always make it look like magic. I tried to fix a chair once because of a video and I ended up with a pile of firewood.
Exactly. 2 hours later, I was sitting on the floor, covered in cold water, and the handle had completely snapped off. I was so frustrated. My neighbor actually walked past the window and saw me looking like a drowned rat. She just waved and kept walking. I think she's used to seeing me in strange situations by now.
Poor Elena. So much for the relaxing morning.
It got worse. Because I felt like I had failed at the plumbing, I decided I needed a win. I looked at the hallway and thought, that wall looks a bit gray. I'll just paint it quickly. By Wednesday, my entire house was covered in plastic sheets and I had blue paint in my hair.
Wait, you went from a leaky faucet to a full home renovation? Elena, that isn't a vacation, that's a job. You didn't get to take a break at all.
I really didn't. By Friday, I was more exhausted than when I'm actually working. My back was sore and I hadn't even opened my book. I realized that it's so hard to get used to resting when you're surrounded by things that need to be done.
I feel you. When I'm at home, I see the doom drawer or the messy garden. It's like the house is a giant to-do list. Maybe that's why we pay so much money for hotels. You're paying for the right to ignore everything.
Precisely. You have to leave your zip code to truly unplug. If the hotel faucet drips, it's not my problem. How about you listening at home? Have you ever tried to have a relaxing staycation and run into a giant project instead? Did you actually manage to rest, or did you end up cleaning your garage for 3 days?
Exactly. That is why I actually prefer being in a completely new city. No chores, no doom drawer, just exploring. But I have to ask you something, Elena. When you are in a new place, are you a person with a strict plan? Or do you just walk and see what happens?
Oh, that is the big question. Personally, I am a total wanderer. I like to have one big thing to see, like a famous museum, but after that, I just want to see where the streets take me. I love the feeling of not having a schedule. How about you?
I really want to be a wanderer, but I usually end up following my wife around. She is the ultimate planner. She has this map on her phone with every single coffee shop and monument marked with a little star. If we are not at the monument by 10 a.m., she starts to worry.
I can imagine. My husband is very similar. He loves to figure out the exact train schedules days before we even leave the house. He needs to know exactly which platform we will be standing on. It is a lot of pressure for someone like me who just wants to look at the pretty buildings.
Right? Sometimes I just want to get lost. There is something really special about that moment when you realize you have no idea where you are. You turn a random corner, and instead of a loud tourist street, you find a tiny, quiet alleyway with beautiful flowers.
I feel you. Those are the best memories. I remember being in a small town once, and I didn't have a map at all. I was just walking, and I ran into this tiny bakery hidden behind an old church. It wasn't on the internet or in any guidebooks, but it had the best almond croissants I have ever tasted.
That sounds like a dream. I usually just run into a dead end or a group of pigeons. But seriously, let's ask our listeners. How about you? Do you need a map and a list to feel safe, or do you just walk until you find something cool? Are you a planner or a wanderer?
It is like a personality test, isn't it? I think some people find it very hard to get used to the idea of not knowing where they are going. They feel like they are wasting time if they aren't seeing the main sights.
I used to be like that. I felt like I had to check every box on the list. But now I am trying to catch up to your style, Elena. I'm learning that the best part of a trip isn't the famous statue. It's the weird little cafe where you sat for 2 hours just watching people walk by.
Exactly. The magic happens in the gaps between the plans. If you are always looking at your map, you never look up at the beautiful balconies or the street performers. You have to give yourself permission to be a little bit lost.
I'm going to try that on my next trip. I'll leave the phone in the hotel for an hour. Though, knowing me, I'll probably end up in the next town by accident and have to call my wife to come rescue me.
And then you'll have to face the long journey home. That's the part I always dread. The post-vacation blues start the moment I have to zip that suitcase back up for the final time.
Oh, tell me about it. That flight home is the worst. You're sitting there in a tiny seat, looking through your phone at all the photos you took, and then you remember you have to go back to work the next morning. It's depressing.
I feel you. I always feel so heavy on the plane ride back. My brain is trying to figure out how to go back to reality after a week of being a wanderer. It's like a mental fog.
And then you finally walk through your front door. For me, the first thing I see is the mountain of mail on the floor, and my dog looking at me like I've been gone for 10 years. He's happy to see me, but I'm just looking at my bed.
Exactly. My cat usually just gives me a very judgy look and then sits directly on my suitcase so I can't open it. But the real struggle is the laundry. Why is there always so much laundry?
It's a law of nature. You take 10 shirts, you wear 5, but somehow you come home with 20 dirty ones. I have to catch up on about 4 loads of washing before I can even see my floor again.
It's exhausting. And even if I only traveled for a few days to a nearby city, I still feel a strange kind of jet lag. I can't sleep, I'm hungry at the wrong times. I think my body just misses the vacation food.
I call it soul jet lag. Your body is home, but your spirit is still sitting at that cafe we talked about. It takes me at least a week to get used to the sound of my alarm clock again. I usually spend that first Monday morning just staring into my coffee.
I think we all do that. We try to pack so much into a trip that our bodies eventually break down a little bit when we stop. We walk more, we eat more, we stay up later. It's a lot of work to have that much fun.
That is so true. It's the classic phrase, I need a vacation from my vacation. I always end up saying that when I run into my neighbor while I'm taking the trash out on Monday morning. She just laughs because she knows exactly what I mean.
We've all been there. How about you listening at home? Do you get that heavy feeling on the way back? Do you come home and immediately start cleaning? Or do you leave your suitcase in the middle of the room for 3 weeks like James does?
Hey, it's only been 2 weeks this time. My wife says it's becoming part of the furniture now.
Well, at least your dog has a new place to sleep. But honestly, even with the suitcase chaos, there is one thing that always makes me want to book another trip immediately. The food.
Oh, 100%. For me, a vacation is basically just a series of delicious snacks connected by a bit of walking. I look forward to the meals more than the actual sights.
I am exactly the same. I don't need a 5-star restaurant either. I love to try out the local street food or find a tiny bakery that doesn't even have a sign. You learn so much about a place that way.
Exactly. My wife is usually the one who wants to see every museum, but I am the one trying to figure out where the best local sandwich is. I think a local market tells you more about a city than a history book does.
I couldn't agree more. I remember being in a very rainy city a few years ago. I was cold, tired, and my shoes were soaked. I ended up in this tiny basement cafe just to get out of the weather. I ordered a simple bowl of hot vegetable soup.
And let me guess, it was the best thing ever.
It was life-changing. It wasn't fancy, but it was so warm and local. I sat there for 2 hours just watching the regular customers come in and out. That bowl of soup taught me more about the feeling of that city than any famous statue could.
I love that. It is a cultural experience in a bowl. You don't have to stand in a long line to have a meaningful moment.
Sometimes you just run into the best memories by accident when you were just looking for a snack.
Exactly. It is about being present, not just being a tourist. How about you, listening at home? Do you have a favorite food memory from a trip? Was it a fancy dinner, or was it something simple like my bowl of soup? We would love to know if you are a museum person or a snack person.
I think we already know which one I am. If I don't eat every few hours, I get very grumpy. My wife always has to carry an emergency granola bar in just case I start complaining too much.
She is very prepared. My husband is the opposite. He gets so distracted by looking at old buildings or watching the birds that he forgets to eat lunch entirely. I have to practically drag him into a cafe before he faints.
Yeah, my wife is always ready with a snack. She knows me too well. But wow, Elena, we have covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? From the nightmare of packing to the joy of finding hidden bakeries.
We really have. It feels like we've gone on a whole vacation just by talking. I think it's a good time to look back at the map of our conversation, to help our listeners figure out how to share their own travel stories.
I like that idea. A map for English. Sometimes when I'm trying to speak another language, I know what I want to say, but I just can't find the right way to start the sentence. It's like being at a crossroads without a signpost.
Exactly. So let's give everyone some signposts. One of the most useful ones we used today was for talking about the past. Do you remember when you were talking about those hot car seats and the vinegar chips?
Oh, I remember. My legs are still sticking to the seat in my imagination. I started that with, when I was a kid, we used to.
Precisely. That is such a powerful phrase for B1 and B2 learners. When I was a kid, we used to, followed by an action. It's a perfect way to share a memory. Like, when I was a kid, we used to visit my grandmother's farm every July. How about you, listening at home? Can you think of one thing you used to do?
That's a great one. And what about when we were talking about our personalities? The whole planner versus wanderer debate. I think I said, I'm the kind of person who.
I love that one because it helps you describe your habits. I'm the kind of person who likes to have a plan, or I'm the kind of person who always loses their keys. It's a very natural way to introduce yourself to someone new.
I'm definitely the kind of person who leaves their suitcase in the hallway for 2 weeks. My wife has to jump over it every morning. She's very patient, but I think she's starting to get used to the chaos by now.
Poor woman. Another one we used a lot today was for those unexpected moments. You can say, I once ran into a problem when. It's a great way to start a funny or dramatic story, like my passport disaster or your leaky faucet.
That's a big one. Travel is all about those little problems, isn't it? And finally, we have to mention the food. That was my favorite part of the map.
Of course. For that, we can use, the best thing I ever ate on a trip was. It's so specific, and it always makes people want to hear more. For me, it was that soup. For you, maybe it's that sandwich you're always looking for.
Exactly. I'm always on the hunt. These starters are so helpful because they give you a little boost. It's much easier to catch up with a conversation when you have these phrases ready to go in your head.
I agree. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to worry about the grammar as much if you have the first few words ready. How about you? Which of these is your favorite? Is it when I was a kid? I'm the kind of person who, or the best thing I ever ate was.
I'd love to hear a story from our listeners using one of those. It makes the language feel so much more real. I'm actually looking forward to hearing what everyone comes up with. I really am. But before we finish, Elena, I think it is time for my favorite part of the show.
You mean the vocabulary corner? I have been waiting for this. We use some really natural phrases today that I want to make sure everyone understands.
I probably used them and did not even realize it. That happens to me all the time.
That is the best way to learn. It means you are using English naturally. Okay, let's look at our first one. Off the beaten path. Off the beaten path.
We use this to talk about a place that is quiet and not full of tourists. It's like finding a secret spot.
Exactly. Like when I found that tiny bakery behind the church. It was definitely off the beaten path.
I always try to go off the beaten path when I walk my dog because he gets scared of loud noises.
My husband and I prefer to find a holiday cottage that is a bit off the beaten path so we can enjoy the silence.
That sounds lovely. What is the next one?
Next is a very practical one. To pack light. To pack light.
This means to bring only a small amount of luggage. It's something I am very bad at doing.
I feel you. It's about being smart and only taking what you really need.
My wife is always telling me to pack light, but I still end up bringing 3 different pairs of boots for a 2-day trip.
It is much cheaper to fly if you can pack light and just use a small carry-on bag.
That is very true. I need to practice that. What else do we have?
This one is perfect for vacations. To recharge your batteries. To recharge your batteries.
It means to rest and get your energy back. Like a phone, humans need to plug in and rest sometimes too.
Exactly. It's not just about sleeping, it's about doing things that make you feel happy and relaxed.
I usually go to the mountains for a weekend to recharge my batteries after a busy month at work.
I tried to use my staycation to recharge my batteries, but the leaky faucet made it a bit difficult.
I remember. Okay, number 4.
To hit the road. To hit the road.
I love this one. It means to start a journey or to leave a place in a car.
It sounds very active and exciting, doesn't it?
It does. We usually hit the road at 5 in the morning to avoid the city traffic when we go on holiday.
My husband always makes sure the car is full of petrol before we hit the road for a long drive.
He is much more prepared than I am. And do we have one more?
Yes, let's look at to get used to. To get used to.
We use this when something feels new or strange at first, but then it becomes normal for us.
Precisely. It's a process of becoming comfortable with a new situation.
It took me a long time to get used to the sound of my dog snoring right next to my bed every night.
When I first moved into my house, I had to get used to the judgy looks my cat gives me every time I'm late with his dinner.
I know that look. How about you, listening at home? Can you think of something you had to get used to recently? Maybe a new job, or even learning English with us. Wow, Elena, I've really enjoyed our chat today. It's been like a mini vacation just talking to you. But before we wrap things up for this episode, we have a little homework for our listeners. We don't want to be the only ones sharing stories.
You're right. We love hearing from you. It makes this feel like a real coffee shop conversation. So here is your task for this week. Tell us in the comments what is the one thing you always forget to pack. No matter how many lists you make, what is that one item that stays on the counter?
That is a great question. For me, it always turns out to be my phone charger. I leave it plugged in next to my bed every single time, and I only realize it's gone when my phone hits 5% at the airport. It's so frustrating. How about you, Elena? What's your ghost item?
I usually forget my hairbrush. I think I've bought 10 hairbrushes in 10 different cities. I end up giving up on looking nice and just wearing a hat for the whole trip. It's part of the vacation look now, I suppose. How about you, listening at home? Leave us a comment and let us know. Is it your toothbrush, your socks, or maybe something weird like your favorite pillow?
I can't wait to see the answers. We really look forward to reading those comments. It's the best part of our week. It reminds us that everyone, no matter where they are from, has these same little human struggles.
Exactly. And that leads me to one last thing before we sign off. Sometimes our listeners tell us they are nervous to leave a comment because they are worried about their grammar. But please, don't worry about that. Imperfect English is still beautiful English. When you share your story, we don't see a mistake. We see a person connecting with us.
I feel you. I make mistakes in English every 5 minutes, and I'm a native speaker. Language is about sharing your life and your heart, not being a perfect textbook. So please join the conversation. We love you exactly as you are.
Well said, James. Now, I think it's time to head home. My cat is already sitting by his bowl, giving me that "where is my dinner" look. If I'm 5 minutes late, he starts trying to eat the plants.
I know that look. I really need to clean up my house too. I've been putting off the laundry all day, and there is currently a mountain of shirts in the middle of my room. My dog has already decided it's his new favorite bed, and I don't have the heart to move him.
You're too soft, James. But yes, go and finish those chores so you can relax. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. It really means a lot.
It really does. Safe travels to everyone, whether you're hitting the road for a big trip or just walking to the kitchen for a snack. We'll be back soon with another chat. Until then, keep practicing and keep being you.
Bye, everyone. Take care of yourselves.
Bye-bye. See you next time.